Hi, everybody. Welcome into another edition, episode 108 of the Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast. Great to have everybody in today on the audio side, Apple, Google, Spotify, and on YouTube, the Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast page to watch full episodes. It's great to have you aboard if you are indeed watching. We do appreciate that. Episode 108, lot to do today, talking our main topic, coaching amateur hitters. At the end of the show, too, we're going to do a little breakdown, not so much a mechanical breakdown series, but a little bit of a breakdown of one of Ep's students as it pertains to today's topic. And we've got some other stuff to get to as well. So let me bring in professional evaluator, successful business owner, former coach, friend, and co-host, Jake Epstein.
Hi, Jim. It's great to
Hello.
be here again.
Well, you know, this new streaming service that we're using is great. And I'll tell you why, because with your pause right there, if we were on Zoom, I would have thought that something cut out.
Yes. Not today, though.
Not today.
Fingers crossed.
No. Good internet, although your browser was a little haywire.
Yeah. I'm running out of juice on this old Mac here.
Yeah.
Might be time for an upgrade.
Time for an upgrade, my friend. You know who else is going to get an upgrade on his contract at the end of the year? Aaron Judge. You might as well just hand the Yankees a blank check and say, here you go. Please write in a figure. Write in a figure.
Yeah.
And I'll discuss it with my agent. Buster only tweeted this morning as we record this on a Saturday. Aaron Judge hit 2 home runs last night on Friday night against the Kansas City Royals. He's on pace, Aaron Judge, according to Buster Olney, in 2022 to hit 66 home runs, 178 total hits, 79 walks, 135 runs, 143 RBIs. And editorially, I'm adding this part in. He's going to make a lot of money.
Going to make a lot of money. And he deserves a lot of money. I mean, he really hasn't had a terrible year. He's had a down year or two. Right. But he really hasn't had a terrible year. And now he's, it comes with age, too, and experience and pitches. He's not missing as many pitches. He's not fouling off nearly as many pitches than I remember over the past few years. And that's why he's doing well. Pitches that he gets to hit that he typically would foul back, if it was a high fastball or a fastball in, he'd foul back and have a great, swing on, if you will, great miss. He's getting barrel to those now. And so, I mean, if you do that, I always tell my players, if take 10 of those foul balls you had, 10 of those cookies that you fouled straight back or that you fouled up and to the right, whatever, whether you were late, not sure you were late, but you dropped your barrel for sure. What if we take those pitches and we hit the ball hard somewhere? What if we hit a double or a home run on those? Like that's a difference maker. And it's not like those are tough pitches. Those are your pitch. Like you got to be able to hit your pitch. He's hitting his pitches and he's hitting some other pitches. I saw Jeff Fry said something like, I don't know, whatever, Judge is fun to watch, blah, blah, blah. But why do you keep throwing him fastballs? Why do you keep throwing him pitches he can hit? Well, pitchers aren't trying to throw cookies. Right? They're missing spots. That's what it is. Pitchers aren't that good. And there's other people in the lineup that can hurt you. So they can't just pitch around them all the time like they could Bonds that didn't really have any help. So he's in a spot now where he's not missing those mistakes. They're not trying to throw him a thigh-high fastball or, on the outer third of the plate. They're probably trying to throw something, a ball off the plate or maybe under his hands, and they missed, and he made them pay for it. So, I don't think it's the pitchers that are just saying, here you go. I think it's him being a good hitter and hitting mistakes right now.
And that lineup is about to be bolstered too, and he's going to help out with that. And of course, the addition of Andrew Benintendi will certainly help, and Aaron Judge in particular, more protection. It will help out the Yankees' order. Andrew Benintendi just picked up from the Kansas City Royals this past week. Prior to the trade deadline, he just sort of changed his clothes, walked right over from the Royals clubhouse to the Yankees clubhouse. Andrew Benintendi, the first thing I've noticed about his swing when I saw him at Arkansas, when I saw that he was drafted by the Red Sox and throughout the minor leagues, watching some film on him, was that what stuck out to me was his lower half and his flat swing. I always loved the way his lower half worked. He gained ground force and he had a very flat swing. I think he's gotten away from that in the last couple of years. This year, though, he seemingly has gotten back to it. I've got some numbers that backs that up, but I just want to hear from you what you see with Andrew Benintendi and his swing.
Well, he's not a big guy, right? He's 5'9", 180 pounds, something like that. Was he a Golden Spikes winner? I mean, he was unbelievable.
Yeah, played at Arkansas.
Yeah, at Arkansas, and was a College World Series guy and all that. And he's another guy that just never really had a terrible year. He's not a guy that hits a lot of home runs.
Right.
I don't know what his career high is, maybe 15 to 20. I don't know if did he ever hit 20 home runs? He's just kind of a higher on base percentage guy, not a high slugging percentage guy. So, he fits in that Yankee lineup because he doesn't strike out as much and he gets on base and he can beat shifts. And I think that's a pretty good compliment to all the people that will surround him. He doesn't fit in that lineup as a guy that's going to just drop a bomb at any time. Most of the guys in that lineup on any pitch can hit a ball over the fence. Benintendi isn't that guy, but he is a guy that can spray the ball the other way, and he can break up a lineup that's possibly full of strikeouts. And that could be good if he could find a way to scratch a hit through or walk, and then one of the big boppers can come up, then it's going to be beneficial to that lineup. And that would be my guess. Otherwise, it's a defense. They're looking for somebody that can fill in defense and outfield role later in the game. But I don't see, he's not like a frontline pickup. I don't think he's a difference maker in terms of he's going to carry your team into the playoffs, because they have a lineup full of people that will carry their team in the playoffs. I think he's a supporting role, a veteran guy that's been in the postseason before, and they can plug him into any outfield spot. He's going to play good defense. He's going to have quality at bats and should be able to help him out. I'm not sure who they gave up for him, but
I have to tell you though, with Benintendi, he was on a lot of people's radars, and he was a player that was expected. If he were to go to take the Yankees out of the equation for a second, but if he were to go to say Minnesota, if you were to go to a Houston, go to a San Francisco, one of these teams, the Cardinals, one of these teams that is in the wild card hunt or in the division hunt and has a real shot to make the postseason, I think teams looked at him as a real difference maker.
They did. I don't know. That's, as the dude would say in The Big Lebowski, that's like your opinion, man. And I mean, he's kind of a difference maker. I don't think I'd build a franchise around him.
Okay, so where do you bat him in the Yankee order then? Because you said he's a lot of big boppers and
you put him in between guys that strike out a lot.
Okay.
You put him in between the high strikeout guys so that you can hopefully get through an inning. If you have a rough stretch of guys that are getting beat, you can kind of get through an inning. So that's where I'd plug him in. And I might be totally wrong, and I probably am, but
that's my line.
Benintendi's never been a sexy guy for me. He's just a guy that plays the game hard.
Yeah.
He's a good quality player. Yeah. He hits 300. He hits anywhere from, 280 to 310. I think he's hitting 320 this year because he's playing in Kansas City and nobody cares and there's no pressure. I don't know.
All right, so Ep is not a big Benintendi fan.
I hope he goes out. I hope he goes out
the
second half and hits 15 jacks and 40 RBIs.
To your point, in 2017, he played in a career best 151 games, hit a career best 20 home runs. Now, with his swing, I want to throw out a couple of more numbers at you. I like doing this. His launch angle this year. Here we go. The lowest of his career at 11.2. His batting average in the upper three quadrants of the zone in 2022. Combined 396. That tells me, I'll get your opinion on this in a second. Tells me though he's flattened out his swing. His swing got way too steep in the last couple of years, which is why he struggled. And he's gotten back to being that gap to gap type hitter that you talked about just a couple of seconds ago.
That's good, very good information, Jim. That's really good information. And that tells you why they got him, because now all of a sudden, when they face guys with high spin rates that are trying to exploit all the power hitters up, here's a guy that can stay on top. He's hitting 400 up in the zone, 390 something.
Yeah. I mean,
that's pretty awesome. That's Sal Frelick, baby.
That's
Sal the man.
That's our guy.
Can handle that pitch, right? But, that makes more sense. And I hope he's on the. And maybe that's why his as a player he was trending up, is because he has made adjustments. I haven't seen him play all year, primarily because the Royals don't get on TV. They get on TV about as much as the Rockies do.
Right.
And I'm not an MLB. So. I'm not sitting there and watching games all the time. So
right, because you hate baseball.
If it's the Brewers, I have to watch.
I always joke with people. I hate baseball. Stupid sport.
You sit and watch it. That's right. It's your work.
Yeah.
But no, that's really good information. Like I'm pretty fired up.
Also, too, with Benintendi though, he's hitting this season, and we talked about this on the show before. Like getting a fastball, not missing that fastball. He's hitting 332 against the fastball this year, 2022. His previous high was in 2018. That batting average hitting against the fastball was 299. So again, previous high 299. This year against the fastball, he's hitting 332. He's just not missing pitches, but he has the mechanics, I think, that he's in that flat type swing to where it's tough for him to miss those type pitches.
He must have definitely made an adjustment,
to
handle those pitches and to make those changes. So that's pretty cool. That's good to see. And it plays in New York.
Right.
Let's not forget about that. Like New York is a good hitter's ballpark. You can have a very flat swing and hit a lot of home runs to right center in New York. So maybe that fits into the equation as well.
Be sure to subscribe to the podcast, Apple, Google, Spotify, and all the other platforms that we're on. And of course, our YouTube page, which continues to grow very slowly, but it's growing. The Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast YouTube page. You can watch us two good-looking men.
Maybe that's the problem.
Oh.
we have faces for radio.
Speak for yourself. I have a ring light now. So Andrew Benintendi, his exit velocity also dropped a little bit in 2022. It dropped 0.7 of a point. But he's still striking out at the lowest percentage of his career. Now that brings me to this guy. His name is Josh Bell of the Washington Nationals, infielder. His exit velocity is down a whole 3 points from where it was last year and just in his career in general. But it's down a whole 3 points from last year. His strikeout percentage, Josh Bell, is down a total of 4 percentage points, the lowest of his career at 13.5. So both Benintendi and Josh Bell having great years. And Josh Bell, I'm assuming he will be traded, and he's going to be a good piece for somebody to pick up, good complimentary piece for somebody to pick up. And the Nationals should get something for him that would help them go into their future. But the exit velocity, I'm wondering, with those numbers that I just mentioned, I'm starting to get curious as to whether or not maybe exit velocity is losing a little bit of its importance across baseball, because now we're seeing hitters like a Benintendi, like a Josh Bell, sacrificing that exit velocity, but they're striking out less and they're having a little bit more success against the shift.
Just another quality dig of quality information, Jim.
Thank you. It's the ring light.
You've been really working.
It's the ring light. I'm telling you. I mean, just when the lights go on, man.
Like you need to be on Nesson one day.
On what?
Nesson, New England Sports Network. You need to be like the Red Sox broadcaster.
Why Nesson?
Why not?
What do you have for me on Josh Bell?
Oh, is that what we were talking about?
Actually, so the Nationals and the Orioles, it would be Masson, because it goes.
That's the one I'm thinking of. Yeah. I'm sorry, that's the one. Mid-Atlantic. Okay.
Mid-Atlantic, right. So Josh Bell, yes, in the exit
going
velocity.
on this fantastic information you just brought out. In order to hit a ball,
smell the sarcasm.
At peak, no, it's really great. Peak velocity, you have to have some bat speed, but you have to match planes perfectly, or be an eighth of an inch off of the center of the ball. So typically when you hit balls really, really hard, you're hitting hard ground balls. Okay, hard ground balls are the hardest balls typically Statcast will ever pick up. So meaning because the ball's coming down at like 4 or 5 degrees and you hit the ball at 4 or 5 degrees, which is like a one-hop laser ground ball typically. Okay, so that would be if you look at the hardest hit balls, they're typically up the middle, but like towards the shortstop side or second baseman side, to the pull side on the ground. That's true with every tracking device on the planet right now. HitTrax, Rapsodo, FlightScope, TrackMan, you go to anything, the hardest hit balls are hard ground balls. When you can hit balls harder in the air, well, that's a special thing, but it's always less. So if Josh Bell rolled over a lot of balls, if he was swinging up a little bit more, which again, not a terrible thing, and he was maybe top spinning some of those pull side ground balls, he may have been hitting them really hard. And so his exit velocity said, wow, this guy's hitting the ball hard, but he's not getting on base, or he's making outs, where now maybe he's missing pitches. So instead of hitting a hard ground ball, or instead of hitting a line drive, now he's hitting a hard ground ball, or he's striking out by swinging under a pitch. So that doesn't count. A strikeout does not count as a ball in play or exit velocity number. Okay, they only count balls in play. So maybe now he's flattened out a little bit. I don't know. But maybe if he did flatten out a little bit and he's creating a little bit more backspin, some people think flattening out means you're going to hit ground balls more, but it's actually just the opposite. If you flatten out or start swinging down too much, you're typically going to cut pop-up straight up. So your launch angle will actually get higher because you're hitting through the bottom half of the ball. You're a little bit more. So what happens when we cut a ball up degrees, and maybe his swing more because he doesn't have to come up. What happens is when we drop our barrel, we have to correct it. Okay, it's like a golfer that comes from the inside too much, has to flip their wrist to fix it. So there's always, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So if we drop our barrel, we usually don't keep it there and miss the ball by 4 or 5 inches. We'll flip our wrists up to try to catch up to it, and that's what leads to that hard ground ball to the pull side sometimes. So when we don't do that and we're kind of cutting through it, which that Soto, I think I put it on the Twitter page again, the Soto home run derby. I mean, who takes a home run derby swing that's that level? Like no one in the history except for Juan Soto. And it was captured, which was so great because it was more like a game swing than a home run derby swing. Yeah. But when you flatten off, a lot of times your exit velocity goes down because you're not necessarily hitting the middle of the ball, you're hitting more the bottom of the ball. So it'll launch higher, but it'll launch at 4 or 5 miles an hour less than that hard ground ball, even though it ends up in the seats. So what could possibly be happening is he's swinging a little bit flatter. He's hitting the bottom half of the ball more. His exit velocity is down because fly balls and higher line drives have less exit velocity than hard ground balls. You could also make the case that maybe he used to swing down a lot. And maybe he used to swing down so much that he hit the top of the ball all the time and had a really high exit velocity. I don't think that's the case because I don't see that at the major league level or even the minor league level anymore. But that could be another scenario where he was chopping down, hitting hard ground balls, and now he's getting to the bottom half of the ball more. So in conclusion, that was the longest dictation ever. In conclusion, he is likely hitting more balls in the air. You could look this up, although you never know. Balls in play. The whole launch angle thing is screwy because it's only balls in play. You know, it's not foul balls and it's not swinging and missing. So yeah. I'm assuming he's more of his balls in play are in the air than on the ground, and that's why his exit velocity is slightly lower.
Yeah, it's screwy, Louie.
It is.
Email the show, jimbopodcast21@gmail.com if you'd like that same dissertation. Ep will send you a video.
Disorientated spiel. Good information in there, though.
You as well. Good job. Thank you very much for that. Now let's get into our main topic today. Episode 108, coaching amateur hitters. You've coached amateurs. You've coached college guys, which are also amateurs. We'll get to a college swing with a student of yours. He is an amateur player. Mini breakdown towards the end of the show. But you've coached amateurs, college guys, top-level amateur guys, and, of course, professional guys. I want to read a quote from the book, Mental Side of Hitting, your dad's book, your book as well. Came out in 2004. You'll like this. He said, quote, your father, Mike Epstein, we didn't want to wait. We wanted instant offense. Timeless quote. We don't want to wait for anything in America nowadays in our world. We want instantaneous satisfaction.
Put it in the microwave.
Just like that quote. Put it in the microwave. That's right.
Yeah. So I take pride I take pride in every player I work with, but what really fuels me is when I work with kids at a young age, 9, or if they're online. So I'll take players online that are 7, 8, 9 years old. typically I'll work with players, at 10 if they have good attention span. But what really fuels me is those 10-year-olds when they're still playing at 18, 19, 20, even 16, because everybody plays at age 10, right? Everybody plays at age 10. And I would say at least 3/4 of the players that I see or meet at age 10 don't have mechanics that will allow them to play in high school.
Glad you brought that up. I do want to ask, when do you incorporate, what age do you start to incorporate good mechanics? Because we've talked about if you have bad mechanics and you're going to suffer. We talked about it last week. You're going to suffer for it later on in your offensive career. So what age do you start?
So on the online academy, I probably have a dozen kids that are 7 or 8 years old and have done absolutely amazing. In fact, one of them is a listener that writes in once in a while that we should definitely do a video analysis of his son.
I've never gotten that person's email, jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. So I don't know.
We've talked about it once.
Oh, it's not that other jerk off, is it? That just constantly. No, not him.
No, we don't talk. We don't talk like that, Jim. It's a family show.
Yeah, you sure?
No, I'm not sure. Anyway,
Ep the executive producer.
Yes, apparently I'm taking on a new role and a new hat. But yes, I mean, I have kids that are 7, 8 years old, and in 3 weeks of just doing the drills, and I just give them a very basic plan. Look, you're 7. Do this one thing all year. Like, that's all I care about, just so we don't have to deal with it when you're 12 or 13 or 14. And it's amazing how the young kids that really want to work. I mean, that's not easy. There's not a lot of 8-year-olds that want to go in the garage and take swings, maybe 3 days a week. But the ones that do, amazing. Like, it's so much easier to learn at that age. So that's why I like to start young. I don't necessarily like, working an hour with a 9-year-old because their attention span doesn't work. But 30 minutes of high quality, attention and instruction, or doing it on their own with their dad for maybe 5 or 10 minutes a day, that's all it takes, is gold. Like, that's the beauty of the online academy. For the younger players, it's like you can just do it on your own. You can get feedback. You're not spending an hour having to pay for an hour worth of instructor time where your kid, might be chasing butterflies for a little bit. They're zoned in for 10 or 15 minutes, and you give them the information, and then they send it to me, and I say, wow, this is great, or let's work on this a little bit more. And then they get excited because, this voice from beyond that knows stuff apparently is telling me I'm doing great. And so there's this sense of accomplishment from, an 8 or 9-year-old, and they want to please that person, right? They want me to look at their swing and see their progress. And sometimes that pays more dividends, positive talk, positive affirmation with players. If you just sit there and tear up everything that they're doing when they're 8 years old, well, that player's never going to pick up a bat again. So there's definitely a way to do that the right way. But that's what it is. Working with a young player from the time there. I just posted one. I had a kid from San Diego come out. Was it last week? Jack came out. So Jack, I don't know. I did some lessons when he was like 8 or 9. And then I saw him again in California when he was like 10 or 11. And then boom, we did some online stuff. They'd send me videos, a couple times a year just to spot check. All of a sudden he shows up. He's big and strong, and he's going to be a junior in high school. And I'm like, oh, what's up, buddy? Like, it's been a long time. Have you, he's hitting the ball hard. I'm like, have you getting any college interest? He's like, yeah, I've committed to University of San Diego. I'm like, thanks for sharing the information. Yeah. But that's the best. Like, I took a picture with him when he was 10 years old when we were working out at like Cal State Fullerton. They let me use their cages. I was out there on vacation, and I worked with a couple of the California guys, that I've known. And boom, now all of a sudden the kid's going to go to college and continue. So that's what I like the most. Trust me, I like working college players fly in, like, Reagan Paulina just came in, and we'll look at his swing here at the end. Great kid, really like Jimmy T Jr., honestly.
Left-handed batter?
Yes.
As handsome as I am?
Left-handed batter, smooth, great hair.
Handsome?
Good personality.
Reagan Paulina, 2024. It sounds like a political.
I'm sure he'll be on your list just because you guys. Although he's a right-handed thrower. Right-handed thrower. He's an infielder, but those guys are fun, right? I mean, they're athletic. They can do things, but taking somebody you don't know a 10-year-old player that I don't know where you're going to be, but let's put you in the right positions for the next couple of years and see what your work ethic is like, see what your diet is like, and if you fill out, and now all of a sudden we see really cool things. So this is the most important for amateur players.
Like this so part of the like, so part of the setting in some of these principles that you're talking about is progression. What example do you have of a good progression that you can incorporate for a young kid, both fundamentally and psychologically, from the time that they start getting serious about hitting, somewhat serious with mechanics, 30 minutes a day, as you mentioned, at the age of 8 or 9 years old, all the way up until Reagan Paulina, for example, one of your students who's in college?
Yeah. Progression's progression. So
yeah.
And it becomes part of their routine. The progression becomes part of the routine. Mm-hmm. So with a young kid that is just working, I take one thing. I look at their swing and I evaluate it and I say, okay, typically young kids move okay. You know, their lower body's okay because it's natural. If you look at old stickball pictures of kids in the streets of New York, or Dominicans, Venezuelans, whatever, 5, 6-year-old kids, a lot of times their footwork and their lower body is very good. And so that's usually the case. If you have a kid take a stride, it's going to be okay. Unless you teach them something weird, or unless they're opposite handed, because they play catch, they throw things, they throw rocks, hopefully they throw snowballs, they throw things like that. And when you step and throw in a throwing motion, it's very similar to a stride when we're hitting. So I'll figure out, okay, this is what we're going to do, Johnny, 8-year-old. I want you to do bottom hand drills, very basic. We're not going to use our legs. And this is what the academy is made for, by the way, is progression. Because I say, I want you to do this drill, this drill, this drill, this many reps. Mm-hmm. So here's your bottom hand drill. I want you to do 20 of those. I want you to do 20 with the top hand. That one's dicey. Okay. That one can go either way. Sometimes I remove that. And then 20 with 2 hands. And then maybe we'll do like a 50% swing to contact, something like that. And then I have them video those. I have the dad or mom video those swings to make sure they're doing it correctly. And they're typically not. So after a couple of days, they send me swings of the videos and it's not correct. So they've only taken a couple hundred. I say, okay, we're doing okay here, but you need to work on this, this, and this more to master those swings. Then a few days later, they send me a swing. Okay, now we're better. Then I'll get them to take a few hundred of those over the next couple of weeks, and then I'll slowly implement more advanced moves. So my online academy is like my own brain in regular lessons. I'm going to give somebody something until they master it. You've reached mastery on your footwork. Now we're going to do something more difficult. Okay, your bottom hand looks good. Now we're going to go to the top hand. Your top hand looks good. We'll go to 2 hands. Sometimes those are week-long segments between bottom hand and top hand. Sometimes they're 3 swing segments. So we have a start and we have a finish. How quickly we move along that road depends on the player's competency level. So where somebody like Paulina that was just in, I taught him how to do this. Within 5 or 6 swings, he was able to do it. And then I gave him something more difficult. And then it would be tough for him. And I'd go back and then I'd go forward and then he would master it. And then yada, 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 we move through mechanics, and then we're working on timing, and we're working on rhythm, and we're working on the mental side, and we're working on taking a certain portion of the plate and attacking that portion and taking everything else. We're working on that. So I would say from beginning to end, we start with bottom hand drill. That's probably the easiest, most basic, most fundamentally important move. And then it finishes with pitch selection. It finishes with plate discipline. And then we just figure out how long we get there. And in the process, I have all my players do their warm-up routine of bottom hand, 5 bottom hand, 5 top hand, 5 2 hand with no legs, couple contact drills, and then boom, let it rip. And that's their warm-up, whether they're 10 years old or whether they're 25 years
old. How do you utilize tech now? Well, I see on social media and I see it splashed on all these websites of academies that people have that are similar to yours. Mm-hmm. Certainly they don't hold up. They're not on your level. And I do mean that very seriously. Because they're not as detail oriented as you, but they're very detailed in the technology that they use right away. Their websites, their social media platforms, they have everything everything
Everybody does a
outlined.
drill in
Everything's
slow motion.
right. Everything's outlined and talked about that has to do with technology. It's all tech.
Yeah.
Well, there has to be a balance there. How do you balance that? How do you utilize tech with coaching amateur hitters?
I use it in the very beginning, so I figure out what they're doing. So I know what I want to look for with the tech, whether it's a K-vest, whether it's a hit tracks or a launch monitor, or whether it's a blast motion sensor, right? What the bat's doing. So the blast kind of tells me if there's a weird video, kind of tells me everything just because I've been using it for so long. I can look at video and be like, your bat vertical angle is bad or it's good. Your attack angle is good or bad because I've just seen so much video. Where if you put that on, the kid will be like, oh, the number's 15. It needs to be 10 at that location. So it makes it easier. So what I'll do is I'll do that to help explain what we're going to work on with the player. Okay, we just took 30 swings. Your average attack angle was 15 degrees. Your average attack angle needs to be 8. Your vertical bat angle on high pitches was 25. It needs to be probably closer to 20 or the teens. Whatever, I see a wrist roll going on here, and you hit 50% ground balls, and you hit 25 line drives and 25% fly balls. So we're taking all this data, and then I explain it. Well, you sure hit a lot of ground balls, didn't you? Yeah. I do. That's usually my miss is a ground ball. Well, look at your attack angle. What causes a ground ball? And usually they'll say, well, usually I'll swing down or just at the top of it. Okay, well, you're definitely hitting the top of it, but you never swung down. In fact, you were swinging up too much if we look at the blast numbers. So now we're comparing blast. You swing up too much, and you also hit too many ground balls. Well, that's like the worst combination ever. Okay. Do you also foul balls back behind you? Yeah, all the time. Foul balls back behind me when I'm. So now I'm creating a plan. Okay, I know how to do that. Like I'm going to let the ball get deep. I have little drills where they have to flight the ball down to right and then flight it up to left with the same swing plane without manipulating things. So I move along that process, and then I'll recheck it. Okay, let's take another 30 swings. This is a few days later, a couple months later. It could be. Depends on if it's an out-of-state player in for the week or if it's somebody that's local. And then all of a sudden, oh, well, now you're 50% line drives and 25% ground balls and fly balls. Okay, awesome. So that's a big difference there. What does our blast look like? Well, now your swing plane is flat, or you're closer to 8 degrees instead of you're 8 to 10 instead of 15 to 20. Okay, good. So that's a great adjustment. That's how I use tech. I'm not going to go crazy. And because here's the deal with tech, it takes time. So all I see with instructors, and I'm going to rant a little bit here, is I see video after video posting of a kid taking a swing this fast with bands and all. That's not game repeatable. Like your body doesn't learn that way. Like your body can learn slow, but that's all they do is these slow moves, and then they're like, okay, here comes a 70-mile-an-hour fastball. Do that same thing. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. I saw somebody saying something about, oh, look at that backside release. All it was Freddie Freeman in the torque position. My dad did that with VHS tapes. Look, his hips are leading his hands. Like it's not a godsend. Do you think he does drills in slow motion where he twists and turns his body? No. He's just an athlete. Like we can teach players to do it without breaking it into. I'm a big fan of breaking it into parts. Like, let's work on the upper body. Let's work on the lower body. But for God's sakes, like.
Well, what's ironic? Sorry to cut you off. Your rant was great, but what's ironic is that people are doing these drills very slow, and they're trying to show off how they're doing the drills slowly. But the point of the drills is to actually make you a better athlete and a better hitter in the box. And by doing that, to become better, you have to be quicker. That's what's ironic about it. So they're going slow on drills that are designed to make you be quicker.
So, so I buy in. I buy in 100%. If they showed this 12-year-old kid before, okay, taking a swing, I bet their back hip moved. Just saying, I bet it moved when they took a swing. They showed them before, then they show them doing slow motion swings for 4 years or whatever the hell they do. I don't know. Maybe that's how they draw out their lessons. Like I don't want to see players all the time. I'm a crappy instructor if I have to see you every week.
Right.
Okay. I'm not preying on people. You should come back next week. It's like, okay, let's do this. Send me a video, do some drills at home. Let's come back in a couple of weeks if we're good. After I do 4 or 5 hours with a player, they should be pretty good. I should be able to see them once a month, once every other month, unless something goes wrong. I shouldn't be, oh, I have a standing reservation with Jake every single week. If you're doing that with an instructor, that's probably not good. An individual lesson every week and you're still working on the same thing, probably not the best instructor.
Okay? And a waste of a lot of money.
And that's how we do the lab. Like the lab, our instructors will do a lesson with a guy maybe once a month, but those guys will come in for the group training where we're throwing sliders at them, we're throwing fastballs at them, right? We're throwing high pitches, we're throwing low pitches, and now the instructors can know what to address during individual time. But you never know unless you put them in that environment. So anyway, that's the thing. I feel like everybody is remarketed, and I'm kind of sick of it because it's everything my dad said in 1998, like with the hips lead the hands, but now you have to like create tension in slow motion to do it. And it's like, no, you don't. Like, keep your front shoulder down longer when your foot lands. Boom, you have torque. Let's not get crazy. Paulina over here was hitting. He's 180 pounds. Mm-hmm. He's not huge. He's hitting balls over 100 miles an hour. BP balls with a wood bat. Like, guess what? He creates separation. Like, he keeps his front shoulder down at heel plant. Great. Like, I didn't do any crazy things to increase, his hip flexion. So what I see is those players. They come into my academy, the online stuff, and I'm like, oh my God, like you're just twisting. Like there's no fluidity to the swing. Your hips are stopping 2 frames before contact. Like it becomes messy. So anyway, I didn't mean to get off on a rant, but let the kids hit, let the kids hit a little bit more. Slow motion is really great for something. I bet I have some of my players do when we're warming up and we're doing bottom hand and top hand and they're at 50 or 60%. But the whole robotic movements has got to stop. And the reason it has to stop is because turn on the TV, nobody looks like a robot. Maybe Donaldson when he's showing things like in slow motion. I don't think he does that anymore. But like when he swings, it's smooth. Like nobody's getting crazy with the shoulders and the front shoulder coming way up and the wrists and the bat like this all the time. I can't see it anymore. It's hurting the players. That's all I have to say. I'm sorry. You can edit that out if you want to.
Oh no. That's staying. In fact, that's going to be one of the segments on the lineup card on the YouTube side. If you haven't subscribed, you should. You can watch Ep doing that rant. The Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast YouTube page. It'll be in the lineup card.
I also want to address. I got a response from the teacher man because I posted a clip of Judge.
Wait, could I before we get to that, because I actually, to be honest with you guys listening and gals, I didn't know that Jake got a response, so he's going off in a direction that I don't know.
I just got this morning.
Notwithstanding, that's okay. You can go off on it. This is a podcast. This is
no, but I'm not going. There's no reason to go off. I'm just saying I got a response, and I'm
I had one more question about our topic, but go ahead.
Person. So I won't ever engage in that. And I don't have a problem with anything that, I mean, Richard does some stuff, but if his players perform, I don't care. I will say that some of his stuff I do really like in terms of his rhythm and the things that he teaches. And all I put on the tweet was Aaron Judge looks fantastic. Check out his knob pass on this home run that he hit. That's much different than what I saw a couple years ago. And then he fired back and said, well, why don't you call me if you want to find out what he's doing? So maybe I will ask him what he's doing. But whatever he's doing is great. And if Richard's the one that taught it to him, great. I wasn't the one that taught it to him. I was just observing what he was doing and noticed that it was much different because that's what I do. So, but that's the game of hitting is let's get confrontational.
Why get confrontational when you can just listen to the Lab Epstein Hitting podcast?
Do what you do, man. Hey, if you taught Judge to get his knob out in front more, which I've never seen in any of your, drill videos, but if you taught him to do that, then I am on board. I am 100% on board for him to do that. I'm just making a notice that this looks different. Like he's not nearly as tight with his upper body as he was before. So anyway.
Well, if Mr. Richard,
it is a great swing, so you should look at it on Twitter.
Mr. Richard, I know he likes to come to Florida, right, in the St. Pete area, and he likes to work out at our friend's Academy. Stance Dr. Steve, I call him, our buddy Steve. So Richard, me personally, I don't live too far from St. Pete, only about 20 minutes. I'll be glad to ride over a jet ski right over to Stance Doctor, and we can talk about hitting all day long.
Yeah, and I know he's super knowledgeable with it, but there's just no reason to be confrontational.
And if not, Rich, then I'll ride my jet ski anyway.
Yeah, you're a big jet ski guy,
huh? Final topic, final point to our topic today, episode 108, coaching amateur hitters. What advice would you give parents coaching their amateur hitters? It's not, it's not easy coaching your own kid.
No, it's find the one thing that's most important. Mm-hmm. Find the one thing that's going to help your kid right now, because they'll get instant results, and then you got them. For instance, I took Vivian fly fishing for the first time, and fly fishing, I didn't catch a fish for a couple months, and it's very frustrating. But I took her to a spot where I felt like we could catch fish, like at the right time. She caught her first fish. She's hooked. She's happy. She will do it again. Okay, so as it pertains to a baseball player, typically young kids, the reason they struggle is one of two reasons. One, they stride really late after the ball comes well out of the hand. What does that do? That causes them to drop their hands before their front foot hits the ground. So if you can get them to step a little sooner, naturally sooner, not stepping and then just stopping and hanging out there, but if you get them to start moving sooner, and then number one, focus on their upper body. Everybody wants to focus on lower body because, ground force works up and power is derived from there. But a better, stronger lower body typically doesn't increase your contact rate. It just doesn't, because you can just move faster with your legs, but your barrel's still not on plane. So I work upper body, elbows, hands, arms, creating a very simple path position, so that they're making contact. They're not going to be hitting balls out of the park when they're 10 years old. Like, I don't care anything about it. I don't care what their extra base hits is, hit number is. What I care about is them making contact more. And as they start making contact, they'll start having more fun. And if they start having more fun, they're going to enjoy the game. And if they enjoy the game, they're going to practice more. And then you can start getting into all the nitty-gritty stuff. So what I like to do is start with the upper body to get them to make solid contact. In fact, I got a note from somebody in the academy, and I don't remember who it was, because there's a bunch of people in there, obviously, but this was the best year that, Tommy had. He had way more hits. His on base percentage was through the roof. He didn't have a lot of power, but I guess that'll come in time. But it's like the kid never got on base last year, right? And he got on base all time this year. So we have to pick and choose. And so I explained it. Hey, the power will come. We're not trying to just launch balls, because he could do that 1 out of every 10 hits. But instead of doing that, he's hitting 6 out of 10 right now. So let's keep him engaged and keep him going. So all that kind of stuff, that's where I start. Upper body, swing plane, get them making contact. Then we can get crazy with ground force and exploding lower bodies and more rhythm to get players to generate a little bit more bat speed.
All right, well, let's get to our mechanical breakdown here. And this, again, attaches to our topic this week, episode 108, coaching amateur hitters. Reagan Paulina, this is a student of yours. He is an amateur. I looked him up, some of his stuff anyway, 19 years old. So Reagan Paulina, 2024. Wonder what ticket he's going to run on, or they are going to run. It's a great name, man. It's two names that go well together that could become a political slogan. Reagan Paulina, mechanical breakdown.
All right, Jim. So this was really cool, because this is Reagan Paulina from Oakland University in Michigan, who, they listen to the podcast every week. So pretty cool. And then they came out to Denver, and we trained a lot. He was coming off an injury, hurt his arm last year, and so wasn't able to play. So just got cleared. But I'll tell you what an amazing swing for a guy that's, I would say he's a little bit above average size. He's 6 foot, 185 pounds, but the ball jumps off his bat. I mean, he hits balls. He barrels a ton of balls. And typically when we barrel a ton of balls, we have a very consistent swing plane. So if we look at what he's doing and what he does great for a kid that's 20 years old and, kind of starting his advanced career. We're going to see his rhythm, and let's see how long his rhythm takes. So that was the big thing we were working on when we started, was he starts to load into his back leg right about here. And it takes him, and he had kind of this leg kick, which we didn't want to mess with because it's his rhythm, but it was a very fast leg kick. So you can see we got it to about 0.8, 0.84, 0.85 seconds, which is absolutely fantastic. When we started, he was at 0.5 to 0.6. Okay, so it was the same move, but it took much less time, like 25% less time, which is not good. Okay, that means we're going to be jumpy and rushing. But let's break down this launch position because it's about as good as you could possibly be. Okay, meaning his front shoulder is down and in. Let's change this up a little bit. His back knee has come in. His hips have started to open. His front ankle is in front of his front knee. Okay, his front foot is open, yet notice how his toes are closer to the line on this. So he stepped towards the plate, yet he opened his front side, which is the winner of the ground force lottery. Hopefully one of you won the lottery the other day. You can help out our podcast. Anyway, just a wonderful position here. In fact, we can put, put a little angle on his, give us a little torque angle here. So there's his hips, and I'd say, whoops. Let's see if we can move his chest. Yeah, he's probably right there, high 30s, which is fantastic. Again, not a huge guy, right? I mean, 6 foot 185. His frame could probably hold, 210 pounds, I would say. Okay, so, we'll see where he ends up in a few years. So from here, as we launch, we'll take a look and see what his head's doing. Okay. Not the greatest circle. There we go. That's better. So really good balance through the swing. And his head is still. Look at his back knee coming in. Notice his back foot. He has some back foot movement. I mean, he's like I asked him, I said, is Bryce Harper did you watch Bryce Harper growing up a lot? And he said, yes. And I said, is that why you have the hair? And he said, no, that's because of Jim. Because this is a little Jim, 15 years ago in college. Anyway, let's go through here. It's probably more like 10 years ago. If we look at his back foot, you can see how much it moves, but he does stay into the ground pretty good here with the backside. Again, his short approach position. If we look here, knob just barely in front of the elbow, but even with the elbow is fine. He's got some bend in his front leg, in his front arm, which is fantastic. Okay. Again, that head's still not moving. One of the other things we're working on was getting the knob out in front a little bit more too. So getting the knob out to where his elbow is there. Before it wasn't. So his swing arc was coming, a little bit further back. For those of you that, follow me on Twitter, I put something in with Judge, a home run he hit. It was so good the other day. And it was his back, his barrel path came right at about his back foot. So if I draw this line with Reagan, who moves his back foot, but we'll go to where it starts. There's a 90-degree angle. How close does his back come to that? Maybe an inch behind it, right? But that's pretty darn good. Why? Because he got his knob to his elbow here in his approach. His barrel hasn't come out. It hasn't released from the body yet. And what that does is that increases the whip. So as he gets the knob out there and then he releases it through contact, it's very explosive, okay? And we're working, making sure the front leg gets straight. You can see the weight in his front heel here is really good. Front leg straightening out all the way. I'd probably like to see a little less movement here. Maybe if his back foot stopped there, just a couple inches short of where it was. So we did work on that towards the end, but we ran him through the gauntlet. He took a lot of swings. We did a ton of machine work, high spin rate, high fastballs. And then we would go low and away. Then we would scoot up to a short plate for velo and like 100 miles an hour reaction time and make him just use his hands to find his barrel. There wasn't any time to stride, kind of like a Bryce Harper no stride, which is really cool. And then we would go back to this plate, which would replicate the changeup. So we did a lot of stuff kind of getting him ready. But the big thing is, he was very athletic and he can hit. I know that. but it was his rhythm, using what he had. So don't go in and change everybody's rhythm. Use what they have. Now you may want to tweak it. Like, for instance, I put his feet together, for a couple hours, right? His feet were like this, and I made him stride slowly. Then I let him go to his regular stride and still stride slowly. So I meshed those two together, which really helped him. Okay, so sometimes you have to change it during the teaching process. Yet when you go to let them just hit, we want to get their comfort and their feel back. You want their old style to wrap kind of around their new moves, and that's what we did here. So just one more look at a really nice swing here. Again, I posted another one of his swings, which is a cool view from right back through the middle. If you go to the Twitter page at Epstein Hitting, you'll see him hitting a line drive 102 miles an hour, kind of right back through the middle. It's a really pretty view. So anyway, want to thank him for coming out. I know he and his dad are listening to this podcast, and they were fun to have out here, and hopefully it leads to just a wonderful season this year.
All right, Ep, great job as always with our mechanical breakdowns, Reagan Paulina. And to watch that breakdown, to watch the full show, please subscribe to the Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast YouTube page. Find Ep on Twitter, where he's now fighting with certain hitting instructors, apparently.
No,
Kidding.
there won't ever be
kidding.
fighting.
Yeah, I'm kidding, everybody. No fighting. We don't have the energy to fight, right? I mean, I have two podcasts to produce. Ep has an academy and an online academy to run, and he's got 3 girls, so we don't have time to fight.
In lessons, bookkeeping.
Yeah. That's right. Running a business.
Milwaukee Brewers work. Yeah. So we're not going to put up our dukes.
But find us on social media.
Very diversified.
At Jim Tara, at Epstein Hitting on all the platforms. Next week, episode 109. We're talking about plan and approach, more of the mental side. I'm looking forward to that. A plan and an approach, developing a plan and approach at all ages, amateur, college, professional. We'll be talking about that episode 109 next week. I want to promote cross-functionality with University of Alabama, former national champion at the University of Alabama. Although I don't know if you're ever a former national champion, right? It's like a former World Series winner, or former MVP. You can't take that title away. So softball national champion Cassie Riley Boscia and I do a podcast every week, cross-functionality episode 3, where we are discussing her journey in her freshman year at the University of Alabama, winning a spot, of course, in the outfield in the starting lineup, the opening day in the spring of 2009. So talk about that. Please subscribe to that podcast. What do you got, sir, coming up at the lab?
That's pretty cool. Pretty cool stuff when you get that kind of current player, today's generation trying to crack a lineup. I hear it all the time. How are we gonna be a team player and take somebody's job?
Yeah,
that's a tough one. The lab, I'm going to be down next month. We're going to do a really cool overall assessment, almost like a combine thing for our lab members with kind of what we talked about today with the K-Vest and the Rapsodo and the Blast and the hit tracks, and create data points for everybody and figure out where we can get better. That's kind of what we're going to do, and then create training plans based on our findings. So that'll be the next big event when I make it down there next month. So look for that for sure on the website, thelabbcs.com.
And for those not watching, Ep just did a big, he opened his jaw very wide and was very happy with himself. But what's the phone number?
www.thelabbcs.com.
All right, find us too on Instagram, Jim Tara, and at Epstein Hitting on Twitter, Instagram. I think I got everything. We're 46 minutes in. Let's get on out of here. Episode 109 next week. Having a plan and approach. Thank you for listening and watching this week, and we will indeed talk to you next week. Have a great week. Week. Enough with the week.